was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Welcome to another Making a Difference Wednesday here in the Fishbowl. You are locked into the Mad Radio Show with John and Sam, broadcasting you live from the Fishbowl Radio Network studios here in Globe Life Park, the heart of Arlington, Texas's entertainment district. Man, and we've been having such a great week. We've been talking to a lot of first responders, but today we are going to talk about COVID and our first responders and the effects it's going to have on them on phase 2. Welcome, Sam. How are you today?
I am doing great. Hey.
You know, we have been chatting a lot over the last couple of weeks, and we've been seeing it. We kind of predicted a lot that's going on with our first responders. And, you know, the only two that I've heard of so far, I heard of a young FDNY EMS EMT who had taken his life. He was overwhelmed, and we just heard of a doctor who took her own life, and I'm sure there's many others out there that we have not heard of. So what are your thoughts on this pandemic and how it's going to affect our first responders after they get out of this fight or flight syndrome?
Well, that's the thing, as you and I know all too well, it's when this thing calms down, that's when the brain kicks in. So the more idle time that the first responders will have transitioning into their regular shifts versus what we're seeing across the board with our most working mandatory 12s, which means 15. It allows you to not only take pause, but if you don't use that pause in a positive way and feed yourself, it can turn quite ugly. And it's unfortunate that, we've already started seeing it. Talk to any expert and, it's all over there. It's all out there. This is going to be the second wave.
You know, we see it a lot with before the pandemic. We've seen how our first responders, when they get into their own minds, when they slow down, when they are not in emergency mode, and they're not sharing, they're not speaking, they're holding all this in, the effects that it has. Mm-hmm. Are we looking at almost a suicide pandemic that's going to be on the rise? And I hate to use that. I really hate to use those terms, but I fear that's going to happen because after speaking to some of the people from New York City EMS, that most of their job, I spoke to one of their union representatives a couple of weeks back, and he says the majority of the job is under 5 or 7 years. So you're talking about young individuals seeing the most horrific sights that they could see, and it's all being compressed into a 2-month period. When you're talking, guys are doing CPR 3, 4, 5 times a day. They are being, they have the fear, the fatigue, the mental overload. Once we're back to normal, do we see people starting to crash?
I think, unfortunately, it's inevitable unless the department step forward and really create an arena, an environment, if you will, of care and support. Because, excuse me, just like after 9/11, you can go back and trace what is the one of the big things that has been missing from every crisis plan. It's the care of the people responding to the crises.
Right.
Because we have an invisible cape and some sort of superhero costume on under what we, our clothes. It's a persona that we take on. We don't like words such as surrender and give in and weakness and vulnerability. And so we've got to create a culture that accepts those words and allows people to get the help that they need and not be afraid to ask for it because of that stigma that still exists. And one of the thing that I think about all the time is what would be the one way to not have the stigma, especially around, if you want to look at just this COVID thing. Put it in the crisis plan.
Right, but see, here's what scares me. Okay, we were starting to make a little headway with our peer support groups, and a lot of agencies, a lot of organizations are really starting to scratch the surface, getting a good handle on the mental health of our first responders. But that was prior to this pandemic. And like you said, now we went from 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts. The guys are getting no sleep. By the time they get home, decon themselves, the fear of their family, fear that they're going to pass this off to their families, and so forth. And then they're back to work. You see the pictures of these nurses and doctors. Their faces are strained. They're wearing PPE almost their whole entire shift. Now, I was in hazmat, and let me tell you something. After 4 hours in PPE, man, it gets confining. It gets claustrophobic. It really does a job on your mental outlook on life. It really brings you into a depressive kind of mode. And now this is day in and day out for our first responders and our doctors and our nurses. And even our 9/11 telecommunication operators who are being overwhelmed with phone call after phone call after phone call. Are we prepared as a country to be able to physically take care of our first responders when this is done?
Why do you always have to ask me that?
Well, I just want your opinion because we really weren't.
Bluntly, no.
We're not. We really weren't prepared for the basic post-traumatic stress after 9/11. We're really just starting to get our programs into place in some of these organizations to deal with the daily stress of our first responders' tasks. Now we throw this on top of it. This is overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. I will say, I like to fall back on a lot of my stress toolbox,
right?
Which it's detach, prioritize, and execute. And every department must take a step back. Chiefs, don't be afraid to ask for help with this. To take a step back, look at the overall situation, get in the trenches with your men and women. They need to know that you're there for them.
Right.
Some are, some
are
not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they need to know that you're in the trenches with them, supporting them, understanding them, and then after you can detach and kind of get some breathing room, because there's always room for that. No matter how bad stuff gets, there's always room to take a breath. And when you have to look at what are your priorities for the people, for your department, for your community.
Right.
It's a big job. Nobody said being the chief of anything is easy.
Right.
And or the sheriff of anything. And then you have to execute the best way you know how. And it's not executing on what you already know. It's making a point to reach out to the organizations that are there, ready, willing, and able to assist you, whether it is setting up a peer support team and getting folks trained, whether it is reaching out to a local mental health expert and saying, hey, can I give your name as a referral to my guys? And I mean men and women. I just, we always say guys. And it's thinking out of the box.
Right.
This is, we're in a, I hate to say it, but how many times do we need to be surprised by a terrorist attack or a COVID or whatever it is before we have some concrete plan of action in place? And I said it continuously. We leave out the care and management of the first responders. They are only able to give as much as their human bodies are able to give, and everybody is different.
Right.
And you cannot give from an empty cup. And that means the care of your patients. That means the care of your families. That means relying on somebody for backup. It's all going to go down.
Well,
performance is going. It's inevitable. Performance goes down.
Well, and when you talk about performance going down, on top of the stress of the daily job, let's add on burnout. On top of that,
right? Well, that's what you want to prevent.
Yeah. Well, you're in the last 2 months, a new EMT or a new paramedic is probably getting the experience of a 5-year veteran, packed into a 2-month period. Mm-hmm. So some of our commanders out there are being overwhelmed, probably because of community backlash that they're getting. They're being taxed with through politicians saying this and that and the other thing. So they're not having time to really evaluate their staff.
Well,
I mean
that is fair. On the flip side, that's when you signed up for the job. I would have hoped that, is outlined in the expectations that you're now going to have to take on relationships with unions, with the general public. You're going to have to do press conferences, stuff that you were not maybe used to, or you did at a very minimal level coming into a commander role or some sort of leadership role. But what do leaders do when we are faced with a crisis?
But
you have to step up no matter what.
Right.
Nobody's saying step up perfectly.
Right.
Nobody's saying take and hold the hands of every man and woman that you work with. But you have to step up. There is no choice.
Right, but you just said it too, Steph. You don't have to step up perfectly. Right. But I think so many people now feel that they are under the gun, that if they don't make the right decision, they are going to be scrutinized to the point where they're not going to have that job anymore. Because people are scared not to be perfect, they're scared to be imperfect and make a decision. So we're in a kind of catch-22. Not only that, COVID came in so fast and so hard, I don't think a lot of organizations were prepared for this overwhelming call volume.
Yes. Again, I allude to his history and the fact that, as first responders in this job, it never stops. It slows down, or it ebbs and flows. And I just, I would love to hear. I made some phone calls today. Didn't hear back from anybody, but I would love to hear from any first responder family member that's out there listening. John, what is the number to call?
The number is, I just put it on the screen. The number, let me just re-put it on the screen. We would love to hear from some first responders, some first responder families on how you're dealing with this. The number is 214-556-6239. That's 214-556-6239. You want to give us a call, you want to give a shout out or a thank you to some of our first responders out there. We would love to hear from you too, because they definitely need the morale boost. There are so many hero stories out there. There are so many people that are flying under the radar. There are so many people that are going above and beyond. And, we notice. When when Blue Help turns around and says, I will listen, well, you know what? Mad Radio, Making a Difference Radio, we know you're out there. We see your posts. We see what's going on. And, we want to share your stories. We want you to feel that, what you're doing is not for nothing. You are saving our lives. You are protecting us. So
yeah,
give us a shout.
Yeah, give us a shout. You brought up something just a minute ago about losing their positions. And if I may be, I'm former Secret Service, lived through September 11th attacks, was in Tower 1 when the plane hit it. We lost our entire field office, which was 7 World Trade. And it was time for our leadership to step up. And I'm not going to use names. We had one debriefing, which was pretty much worthless. I had asked for help from the folks connected to our HQ a couple of times. Nothing ever came of it. In the end, I was one of 8 agents to resign and leave in a month. Unprecedented. When I went into training,
one of 8.
That doesn't happen. You go to Secret Service for a career, okay? Right. So one of 8 to leave in a month. And what did happen? The sack of our field office was gone. Removed, transferred. Okay? So he did lose his job. Why? Failure in leadership. Would it have been so difficult? And I can say this now sitting, call me a Monday morning quarterback, armchair, whatever. I can say this now because I've processed my experience. I've written the books. I've gone through this. But would it have been so difficult for the SAC, the AT, to really reach out and say, hey, are you guys getting the help you need? I would have said no. Now, I didn't go to my direct supervisor because of some, the big elephant in the room. There were some other underlying issues. But I'm sure they track this. As an agent, I did call. I did ask. And I was told we'll eventually get there. Well, the help never got there. And why we were told, we have to focus on the Pentagon. Why did we have to focus on the Pentagon? The U.S. Secret Service doesn't have anything to do with the Pentagon. Yes, we were helping and rescue, but you lost one of your largest field offices. Gone. Wiped out.
And nobody had a plan after the fact.
Right. Nobody stepped up in leadership to say, understand, Pentagon, you need to be here for this field office because this is the United States Secret Service. We are not slowing down with our mission. The president, came up to New York. I traveled after that. Why didn't the help come? Why wasn't the phone picked up? And like you said, I don't know if he ever feared of losing his position.
Right.
It may have come as a surprise. Was it right? I don't know. I wasn't part of that decision making. I knew that I had to do what was right for Sam.
Right, of course. But what I'm hearing now, and through all the news reports, and I think there was a little tidbit. I think Cuomo from New York brought this up the other day. Talked about suicides briefly, very little bit, but you don't hear any politician. You don't hear any top commander from any first responder organization discussing, they're patting everybody on the back. They're saying what great jobs they are doing, and they are doing fantastic jobs, but they're not saying anything about the mental strain. They're saying, these guys are they're focusing on a lack of PPE. They're saying the call volume, but no one's saying the strain that's going on in these first responders' minds. And, not only their first responders' minds, how about their family? Are we looking into, maybe looking at their family mental health? I got a couple of inboxes the other day from some first responders' families talking about, my husband came home and, he's overwhelmed, he's shot, he's exhausted. He gets changed in the garage. He washes himself down and he goes right into bed to start another day. The kid, he doesn't get to see the kids. He doesn't, because of fear. That puts a strain on your spouse, man or woman, Children the children are feeling this effect. And this is going on almost 2 months. 2 months of constant, non-stop mental anguish. It's a pounding on your brain. I think we are going to see post-traumatic stress injury, the worst we've ever seen it, once this starts to die down. And
No pun intended.
no pun intended.
Slow down.
Yeah, but once it starts to slow down, our first responders are going to try to get back into their normal routine, and this whole adrenaline rush, because your brain is constantly producing this adrenaline every single day, and when it stops, we're going to see a lot of people crashing and a lot of people not knowing how to handle it. So it's going to be up to the commanders to step up and start putting these plans in place now, because it's going to be too late if we start looking a month from now.
Absolutely. And a shout out to Sheriff Wayborn and
Yes.
folks in Fort Worth who are stepping up, who are doing things for their folks, who are examining who needs help, offering. Being very, very proactive. And, I can speak for the state of Texas and the organizations that I've come into contact with to say bravo for, having their crisis teams and their peer support, which is so important, step up. They're being overworked and really are, because they are doing their jobs as first responders and offering.
I don't want to cut you off real quick, but Kimberlee
Yes.
Madden just sent me a text. Well, answered on her Facebook. Says it's draining, John, and I just dispatch. Just that word right there. I just dispatch. No,
You don't
just dispatch.
Yeah.
You are the front line, Kimberlee. I just dispatch. Do not minimize that job at all, because you are actually a first responder to our first responders.
Yes.
You're the one that answers that call. Now, Kimberlee, if you want to call in, give us a shout, 214-556-6239. We'd love to hear from you, because you're not just a dispatcher. You are part of this whole system that it starts with you.
Right, it can't work without you.
It can't work without you. It starts with you. And I think dispatching is probably one of the hardest jobs, because you get no closure.
I don't think I could ever, knowing what I went through with the post-traumatic stress and everything, I don't think I could be a dispatch at all. I look at what they do, and we were out at one of the call centers, and I'm like, no, it's not my brain. No, not possible. And I look at these folks, and I am just like, thank God that you have the resilience and it's God-given. This skill and ability to multitask at the level that they
Right.
do. I can't write and speak at the same time, let alone type and speak. It's truly astounding to watch what they do, to watch them do their jobs. And so let's take "I'm just" out of the vocabulary.
Right.
You're not just.
You are the axle of that wheel. You are the without you that falls apart. And you think about even like New York City, where they're running 7,000 calls a day. Okay.
God, it's up again.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Don't misquote me.
6. It went
right.
from 45 to 6.
Okay.
I remember that.
Yeah. So it's almost 6,000 or 7, and on some days 7,000 calls a day. So somebody's answering those phones. Somebody's answering those distress calls. Now, as a cop, I would respond to a call. Okay. Dispatch would give me a call. I'd go to the call, and I was able to evaluate the call, finish the call, and I know what the disposition of that call is, right? That kind of gave me closure, okay? I was able to walk away from that call knowing what it's for dispatchers, for telecommunication operators, it's like reading half a book. They never get to see the end sometimes, especially in the big cities. They never get to see the ending of the book. So they read it all the way up to the last chapter, and then they're done.
Yeah, then they have to close it.
Imagine that, not ever knowing the closure. That right there is stress. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're getting a call. Hey, welcome to Making a Difference Wednesday. You're on Mad Radio. Who's calling?
Hey, John. It's Kim. How are you?
Hey, Kim. How are you? Thank you for
Doing
calling
well,
in.
thank you. No problem at all. You're doing a great thing. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for what you're doing. Now, I saw that text. I just dispatch. You're not just a dispatcher. Like I said, man, me and Sam have discussed this over and over again. You are the main hub of a first responder. Because without you, none of this works.
For
I
sure.
appreciate that.
Now, as a telecommunication operator, what are some of the things that you're seeing in your district, or the calls that you're getting, the frantic responses? Has your call volume gone up? Are you by yourself? How's that working?
I'm by myself in my office for the district I work for. The call volume dropped down when this quarantine first of all started, and then it went up probably about 2 weeks ago, but now it's dropped off again because I just think people are probably afraid to go anywhere near a hospital at this point.
Good point.
Yeah, true. Now, the crews that you're sending out, I know you're in a single district, right? Where are you again? Farmingdale?
On Long Island in New York.
What part of Long Island? You're still in East Farmingdale?
Melville.
Melville, right. So Melville's got a pretty big district, and you knowing what I know is you dispatch for multiple houses, correct?
Multiple houses, but just the one fire district.
Just the one fire district, but multiple houses. So, at being by yourself in something like that, you're kind of on a better plane than most, because those guys come back to the firehouse and they are able to discuss stuff with them. You can ask them how the call went, but a lot of our emergency dispatchers aren't able to get that closure. So you know what I'm talking about, that closure, right, Kim?
I do, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head when you said that before, that I don't get the closure, because in a sense I do, because I can talk to the guys, but my office now is on lockdown also. They're not, they don't want anyone coming in, and they don't want the dispatchers getting exposed because they want us to still be able to come into work, so.
Well, so forced isolation even on the job. So yeah, that just brings in another level of stress to help that we have to combat. See,
and just going on with Kim now. I mean, I grew up on Long Island. I know where she is. I know where she's working, and I know the camaraderie you have in those fire stations. It's like with New York City EMS, you don't really have the pleasure of knowing personally your dispatcher too well, because they're in another borough and they're dispatching worldwide. Kim knows all these firefighters. She knows all these EMTs and paramedics personally. So there's another stress level that when she sends some of her friends and comrades out there on a COVID call, it's got to be stressful, because now she's sitting back going, man, I hope they're okay, right? Because you have a certain bond with a lot of the guys in the firehouse, correct?
I do. I just said that recently, that I feel horrible to a point, because I know what I'm sending these people into, and they are my friends, and I do care, and you just hope that they protected themselves properly and did the best that they could to keep themselves safe so that they don't get it and they don't bring it home to their families. And
well, Kim, I'm going to ask you a question. What are you doing for you? I mean, let's look at your mental health real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm sure you're stressed. I'm sure, when you get into your own mind, like all of us, we don't want to be there, right? And especially in isolation, being home, we start thinking about things we don't want to think about. What are you doing for you? What can you pass on to some other emergency dispatchers? Maybe coping mechanisms that you use to de-stress?
I personally color. I enjoy doing adult coloring books because it helps pass the time.
I heard those are really good for you.
You're focusing on something completely different, and listen to music, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's not the easiest thing in the world because, you can't be near anybody, and
Right.
you don't want to go near your parents because, your parents have always been there for you, and you don't want to go near them because you don't want to get them sick. And, so at home we do the Zoom calls, and I'm fortunate enough I get to see my brother-in-law every day at work, but that's real. I just do anything possible to try and keep my mind off of it, whatever that could be, whether it's watching mindless television or that's it,
That adult coloring, I heard such great things about that.
I tried that once.
I can't stay in those lines, those books.
I have to move. I can't. I can't do the coloring. It's just me. It's pretty if somebody's really good at it. I enjoy the end result, when the creativity of it, but having to sit and do that, no, it's not. I don't think I've ever been a colorer.
But that's when we when we turn around and and I'm glad she brought that up, because everybody has different outlets, and you got to really think out of the box, and go pick up one of those books, because it does draw your mind to concentrate on certain colors, which definitely activates the brain. It puts you into a creative pattern on different color choices, and it makes you and those lines are so thin. It's not like the big coloring books we had as kids. Right. There are some fine lines in there where you really have to concentrate and get your mind mentally focused to stay within those lines, and you're creating a beautiful picture.
You're describing this so well. Tara helped you out at all. Wow, I love it.
How often do you do this, John?
Yeah.
I've never done it. My daughter has done it, and she just does it because she likes to color with the kids, and she wanted something bigger than a big bunny. So she, but let me ask you something else, Kim. How are the guys in your firehouse holding up stress-wise as well? Do you see that?
It seems like they're doing all right. There's still always going to be the select people in any environment, and unfortunately, even in the line of business I'm in, that some people don't think. I don't know if it's that they don't think it's serious, or if they just think if they get it, they'll be fine. But it seems for the most part that people are holding up pretty well. They close down all the firehouses in the sense of they don't want people, they want to avoid the gathering. So they don't want you hanging out, so you're free to come up for an alarm, but after that, they don't really want you hanging out, and they're not doing it to tell people we don't want you here. They're doing it to protect you.
Right.
Right. Well,
but
that
it
level
seems like a lot of the people are doing all right.
Well, that level of we want to protect you, again, I don't think that the powers that be are really thinking about that social aspect that the firefighters rely on to decompress after calls, to relate to one another after calls, that camaraderie, that team just atmosphere. And that's gone.
And Kim's in a unique situation.
I mean, to a point, they do allow, they're not kicking you out of the firehouse when you get back from an alarm, but they also want you to be safe. So if you're going to be hanging around people, they want you wearing a mask and, socially distancing and stuff like that. They're not going to throw you out, but they honestly are really doing an amazing job at trying to keep everybody safe in the district that I'm in. And I have told them time and again how much I appreciate it, because it means a lot to me.
And to give all our listeners around the world who are hearing this, when you think about where Kim works right now, the fire department that she's at, Melville Fire Department, they are going out risking their lives for free. For free. That's a 100% volunteer organization. Well, no, Melville may have paid rescue. Kim, am I wrong?
Not paid rescue per se, but they do have supplemental employees, yeah.
Okay, but for the majority of it, it's all volunteer. So, when you look at something, the firefighters and the paramedics and the EMTs over at Melville Fire Department who may have jobs in the city, so they're working their 12-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts working in New York City, working with that COVID-19 calls. They come home, and instead of relaxing and instead of being able to decompress, that pager goes off. They're up and at the firehouse trying to protect their own community. So they are overloaded. When you look at some of the volunteer fire departments on Long Island, a lot of these guys are city firemen, city police officers, and city EMTs and paramedics getting paid for their career. Then they come home, and they are part of a volunteer fire department on Long Island that they do this for free, and they still go out even after a day's call because they got to protect their communities, which, let me tell you something, that right now is the top of the hero chart right there, when you think about that.
Absolutely.
The above and beyond. So
They're
Kim,
doing a great job out there.
Kim, God bless you. God bless every member of the Melville Fire Department and every fire department on Long Island, the 176 of them that there are, that are out there keeping their communities safe after most of them worked a long day in New York City as EMTs and firefighters and police officers. Because Melville's loaded with firefighters and city workers.
Yeah, God
true.
bless you guys. We're thinking about you every day, and just know that there's a whole bunch of Texas that came from New York that we don't forget.
Kim, does your chief?
I'm coming there when I retire.
There you go.
Kim, does your chief have a plan on like what me and Sam were talking about for mental health afterwards? That when this pandemic stops, on a peer support network?
I'm sure he does. I'm not privy to that information. If you need it, they're there. If you need anything, they're there. All you have to do is call them and ask, and no matter what it is.
See, right now, I'm going to take back everything I just said.
Yeah.
I'm going to take back everything I just said. I'm sorry. Because here's where lies the problem. Here's where lies the problem. You said it in your text, I'm just a dispatcher, which you are so much more than that, right? And then I ask you about a mental health program, and I'm not privy to that. How many first responders are not privy to their mental health programs?
It should be posted.
It should be posted. You should be 100% informed. You should not have to go to them. They should already have that available 100% of the time. You know what I'm saying, Kim? And I'm just kidding. I don't take back any of my hero stuff for you guys because you guys are all doing a great job. But what you just said is the mentality and the stigma that we were trying to break. We don't want you to be not privy to the mental health programs available to you. We want that should be way open. That should be so much in the open that you should know more about it than your chief, than your director. You should be able to look at those mental health programs and do research and find out more about them and be part of them. You should be, and you're just one person. I'm sure there's a lot more out there that are not privy to their programs. And that's what we got to change.
I may have misspoke. I mean, I'm sure they have something. I may just never have looked to find it.
Good, Sam.
Okay,
what are you going to
that's
say?
fair. No, I was going to say that's fair.
Yeah, no.
That is,
but,
so.
You should. I get it, and I'm not going to get you in trouble, Kim. No, but no, and it's not anybody's fault because once again we're just scratching the surface on this mental health issue through our first responders anyway. So a lot of leaders, a lot of people don't know how to approach it. A lot of people don't know what information to put out there, and maybe just a little behind the eight ball on getting the mental health programs up and running, and they don't know how to react to it. So it's nobody's fault, and it's just a part of being informed, and to make sure that you have all your people informed about the programs that are going to be available to you. And it takes somebody like yourself, because I know you're educated, you have a passion for the job, to maybe step out of that box and turn around and say, hey, listen, what are we doing? Maybe take the lead on that, because anybody can do it. Anybody can take the lead on a mental health program and say, hey, I want to make sure our guys are okay. Ask that question. What are we doing about this? Is there anything that we can do about it? And the worst answer you want to hear is, no, we're not going to take care of it. But I don't think that's going to be the point. There's so many chiefs and leaders out there that are overwhelmed right now with this pandemic that may have been put on the back burner because they are so overwhelmed with everything else, all the other tasks that they're doing. So sometimes it takes people like you, Kim, to maybe step up and say, hey, let me put this program together.
Yeah, it's like taking the piece of paper that gets to put to the pile on the stack, and you keep putting it on the top, and then it'll go down, and then you keep putting it on the top. So it's always,
right.
Okay,
it should
maybe this person, or they want me to do something.
It should be right up front, and especially now. When we talk about New York City a lot, that program that they put into place for their mental health peer program, where they got one director and six peer groups for each borough to handle 40,000 police officers. That's ineffective. It's way ineffective. And what you don't want your department doing is putting a smoke and mirror plan together. You want people that are going to put the plans together that are going to work, or at least keep that person on the right track. It's not a smoke and mirrors for the media to turn around and say, oh, look, they have a program. We want the programs to work,
I'll do it as soon as I go into work tomorrow morning.
Kim, thank you so much. Keep us abreast, and give us a follow-up. Please feel free to call in anytime. Let us know how you're doing. And, yeah, if you need help with a program, me and Sam will help you put that program together. That's what it's all about. It's helping one another.
Fantastic. I hope both of your families stay safe and healthy.
You too, Kim. Thank you very much.
You too. God bless.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Sam.
Bye-bye.
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 She really is a great person. She's got a lot of passion for the job, and it is hard. It is hard when you don't have the authority, or you don't have the ability to say, hey, I see something wrong. And there's so many of people out there. There's so many Kims out there that are sitting behind going, man, I wish I could do something. I wish I could do something. And looking at some of these leaders that may not be following through, Yeah,
well, let me just touch on there's something that goes along with post-traumatic stress, even not post-traumatic stress, called survivor's guilt.
Yes.
And I look at it this way, if you've got a voice, it doesn't have to be big. Like I said, you're just making somebody aware of the need. Okay. So many people think, oh, well, somebody else will do it. And then when you've got somebody who completes suicide in your department and you chose not to, that sucks. And that stays with you forever. And there have been many a person, call it, a suicide survivor in these fire stations, in the police station, that have taken their lives over the guilt that they felt like they should have done something, or they failed to do something. I mean, how awful is it that when you can't protect your own? And I'm not talking about your family. I'm talking about the men and women that you serve with, and how awful is that? You
hit that right on the head, because the loss of this last FDNY EMS kid, this young EMT, kid. He was only on the job a couple months. They interviewed some of his peers who said this kid was full of piss and vinegar. He was always excited about the job. He always had a smile on his face. You know what? But nobody saw the signs.
Yeah. both because everybody
you
was
would-
trying to do the same thing to
Right.
get through their shifts.
Right, get through
Which
their
is
shifts. He fell
what
through
we
the
do.
crack. He fell right,
Yeah.
but this kid fell through the
Yeah.
cracks, and it's nobody's fault. But somebody
Right.
should have been watching. Somebody's got to overlook like an umpire in a game,
Mm-hmm.
or like a referee in a game. An athlete can't watch for the fouls because he's got his head in the game, right? We need somebody to watch our players, our first responders out to make sure that they don't foul out.
Right. So I got your 6 goes beyond having your back, serving warrants, out on the
Yes.
street. It's complete. It's a complete thing. And it is a it's always tragic. People have asked me about it because he was only on the job for such a short time. Was something missed in the I don't profess to know what the application process is and the training and all that, but was something missed in the psych, and I tell people I don't know. It is just a tragedy that we now have to learn from, and we need to try and plug the hole if there was something missed.
New York City EMS, when you go on there, you go through the academy, you go through the whole process. They have a very good hiring process, but for the things, for a young kid, he was, and I say young kid because under 25 is young.
That's we're of that age where we say kid. Yeah.
When you are placed in the back of a bus, and he had no chance to really gear his mind up through a good year or two of experience of running calls, going to different calls on a slow pace, talking them out. This had to be so overwhelming for him. When you talk about 50 cardiac arrests, he probably got into this job he probably started his tour off doing three rounds of CPR.
Or the fact that, they're pulling bodies out of
Right.
apartments and not able to do the life-saving things that they were trained to do.
Talk about survivor's
That's
guilt.
a mind screw,
Yes.
as I call it.
Yeah.
That was the G-rated.
No, you're
complete
100%
mind
right.
screw.
That's goes on your survivor guilt.
Yeah. Wait a second. I signed up to be an EMT, but you're telling me I can't use CPR or the life-saving skills that I was trained to use, and I have to watch people die.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No EMT or paramedic wants to do that.
Nobody that serves in any first responder capacity. I mean, it's like telling police officers, "Well, we're going to give you a gun, but you can never use it."
Right. It's just
Yeah. Don't use the tools. So it's a mess. We have the luxury of kind of sitting back and dissecting it a little. We're not in on the front lines in an office. We're on the front lines to protect our families, and our friends, our community, and what we're doing respectively in our areas. But yeah, these men and women, and we can't forget the ER docs and nurses, because they bring people in, and when they're bringing people in, it's because it's ventilator time. This is from what I'm hearing.
yeah.
And hooking people up to ventilators and then watching some of them die. It's tough. And the ER doc who completed suicide, she went through a roller coaster ride. Her father spoke openly about the experience, and she actually was sent home to Virginia, I believe it is, and to spend time with her family. But because she did not want to get them or expose them, she was starting to feel better, and so she went back to work, and it was like she felt like a ping pong ball.
Oh.
So there were no clear answers. I have heard that a lot of the hospitals have mental health right on site. Don't know how they're being utilized. Might that be something that the hospitals look at again, this is not a norm. They have them for the normal
Normal,
working
right,
days.
right.
We're not in a normal working thing. So might we need to step that up to
Yeah.
make it even more available so that we can stop that? Because the ER docs and nurses, they can't unsee what they're seeing either.
A nurse or a doc, most of the nurses, because the doctors are in and out, and I don't want to discredit the doctors, but the nurses become more in tune with their patients. So when someone comes in on a Thursday and they're ventilated on Saturday and they die on Sunday, that's, for a nurse, for someone on that floor to see that over and over and over again. You're talking to a patient, nurses are used to losing terminally ill patients. They're used to losing traumatic injury patients. They get that. They didn't form a bond with somebody. But when someone comes in and they're sick, and all of a sudden 2 days later they're dead, that is horrible and they're doing this multiple times a day. Nurses all day long. So nurses are losing 2, 3, 4 patients a day, if not more. How does the human mind process something like that? We only got about 2 minutes, but how does the human mind process that?
That is a question. It comes down to effective techniques to decompress, the ability to reach out and to talk about it. Look, nobody wants to bring this crap home to the family to say, I lost 20 patients today, or whatever the number is. You don't have to bring the gory details. You just have to let them know that you had a crappy day and that let's talk.
Right. But you know the response, because if you go home and you say I had a crappy day, right, the response is going to be, well, what happened? It's a normal human.
Okay, so don't say what happened. Just say, tell me about it. Family members, tell me about it. And then don't talk.
It is a gray area.
We're laughing, but truly don't talk. Don't try to fix.
Right.
Give hugs. Hold hands. That's what you can do. Just
and don't try to rationalize it.
Right. That's why I say.
Yeah.
Don't ask what happened. Tell me about it. Shush.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Don't be a fixer. This is one of those things that you can't fix. You can't fix.
Yeah.
You're just a shoulder right now. You're just a venting board for someone to come out on, and that's a great way to end the show. Don't be a fixer. Just be there.
Be there.
Be there. I will listen.
I will listen.
I will listen. And shush. 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 I like that. Ask the question, then shush. How was your day? Now shut up. and let our first responders throw up all their feelings right onto your shoulder. That's what it's all about.
And then give them a hug.
Yeah, and then give them a hug, right? So before we end, man, I want to thank all our first responders. I want to thank everybody out there who is in the front lines of this pandemic. We are with you. We are trying each and every day to make life a little easier for you. I want to thank all our non-for-profits, Six Stones, Life's Message, Travis Manion Foundation, The Mission Continues, and a host of other ones that are out there also trying to do well in their communities to try to bring food and masks and everything else. They're working diligently for the people that need it. Sam, any wrap up that you want to bring up?
No, thank you, Kim, from Long Island,
Yes.
for shedding some light. And like I said, all our prayers go out to you guys. We're holding you as you're one of our own. Just be safe.
All right. And once again, this hour went too quick, but great topics. Remember, heroes don't wear not all heroes wear capes. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Sam. Once again, it's been a pleasure. And until next week, you listen to the Mad Radio on Making a Difference Wednesday here on FBRN.US. Catch us every week, starting at between 6 and 7, right after the 99% Radio Show. And until next week, God bless. Love you. Stay safe.